The man that introduced Elton John to his songwriting partner Bernie Taupin is our special guest, part 3 of our series on Ray Williams and that famous Troubadour show which introduced North America to Elton John. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. Well, just this past Sunday, I'm Gonna Love You Again won for Best Original Song for Elton John and Bernie Taupin at the Oscars. It was Elton John's actual second Oscar. First one, though, for Elton John and Bernie Taupin together. It was a proud moment. And just 2 days ago, we talked to Caleb Quay, who was one of Elton John's original guitarists, a guy who came back in the mid-'70s for 2 albums, Rock of the Westies and Blue Moves, and we'll have him on the show coming up tomorrow. But Ray Williams, I had a chance to talk to Ray over an hour. We were talking about a lot of the things that he did outside of Elton John. Now, he was a press agent for Sonny and Cher, signed ELO's Jeff Lynne to his first big contract with his band Idle Race at the time. Sure, he managed Elton John, but he also managed Stealers Wheel, who had the big hit Stuck in the Middle with You. And in the 80s, he was a leading TV and film music producer in Europe. The guy's no one-trick pony, that's for sure. He's done a lot. But in the movie, they portray Elton as being incredibly nervous before that August 25th, 1970 show at the Troubadour, his debut to North America. There was a lot of pressure there. One of his heroes, Leon Russell, was in the audience. He would, of course, later get to know Leon and record an album with him. Neil Diamond was there. Quincy Jones. There was a lot of pressure. Even though Rocketman portrays Elton John as just being a nervous guy, a lot of pressure, there was a lot more to the story. Ray Williams, who was his manager at the time, looks back and realizes they could have probably made things a lot easier for Elton, but they were young at the time. Hindsight, right? And before I forget, great story on Gordon Lightfoot at the end of this clip. Very interesting story and a very unique way to meet a musical legend like Gordon Lightfoot. So stick around for that at the end of this clip. First, I talked to Ray and said, "Do you ever shake your head and wonder, all that hard work really paid off, plus a little luck?" Doesn't it give you perspective going, yeah, that was me?
Yeah, well, there is a bit of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
There is a bit, wow, if it wasn't for me, which is a bit selfish.
It's true.
He would he have sung, well, he wouldn't have sung Incredible Funeral of Diana. When he did that, that was quite outstanding. He was able to do that, to be able to sing that song at that funeral. Every so often you sort of pinch yourself, and it's an incredible thing to have been involved with.
Well, one bad bounce, you know how it is in life. If you go left instead of right, none of whatever that is happens, right?
Yeah.
So you were one of the good bounces.
Yeah, exactly. So he was... he started to show some of his Elton sides. It was purely because of the pressure.
Well, the Troubadour stuff, he was that nervous, right?
Oh yeah, we had an argument. The argument really took place at the hotel. We'd got to LA, and we had like a day off, and I think Nigel wanted the hairdryer for his hair. And I had an old girlfriend out there, and I'd introduced her to Sonny and Cher, Joanna, and she was now working for Sonny and Cher. And she wasn't there, but her sister, Janice, was there. And I said, any chance of getting a hairdryer? And so she came along, brought a friend, and they said, what are you doing? And we said, nothing really. Why don't we all go to Palm Springs? It's a lovely day. I said, what a great idea. And everybody said yes. And then at the last minute, Elton pulled out. And, because we were all 23, young, we hadn't been trained to, well, you got to stay here and you got to stay here and all of that. We were just having a lot of fun as well as working. We went to Palm Springs, long story short, and we came back. Elton was obviously in a real bad bait. And he didn't want to do the shows. He wanted to go home.
Was he just nervous?
That was it. And I think we underestimated that sort of, sometimes you don't, sometimes when you're young, you don't have empathy. You think everybody's like you. Well, they're not. So I guess if we had that time again, I maybe would never have gone to Palm Springs. But it happened. That's what we did. And we eventually got him to stay, and we did the Troubadour. That was it.
Who was
That
in the
was
audience,
really-
by the way? I know there was a lot of people showed up, which it did make him nervous when he found out, right?
Yeah, it made him more nervous. I mean, the biggest thing that made him nervous, I think, was seeing Leon Russell sitting in the audience. Neil Diamond had introduced him, at the Troubadour. So he got Neil to introduce Elton. There were a lot of people. Quincy Jones, I think some of the Eagles, just lots and lots of people.
What was that like for you? What was being in that?
I'd been to LA before. So, I can remember first time I went, I remember seeing the Doors doing their 2 weeks. They did a week first at the Whiskey A Go-Go. I was hanging around with all sorts of people at that time. So seeing well-known people there really didn't faze me too much. I guess Quincy Jones, seeing him afterwards, because he was always such a well-known man, as Quincy Jones arrangements and this, that, and the other. He was somebody that I really liked, and I met Gordon Lightfoot, who was a lovely man. I spoke to Gordon Lightfoot for a week. After every show at the Troubadour, I'd go out and have a drink at the bar with this guy who was sitting at the bar.
Yeah. And
we just sat there for a week, talking every night. And we didn't talk about anything other than until the very last night. He said, I won't see you again. He said, I'm off, I'm going off back home. I said, where's that? He said, Canada. I said, oh, great. I said, what do you do then? Because we've been sitting there.
He'd never mentioned it once?
No, neither of us had mentioned anything. We were just having a great chat. He said, what do you do? I said, well, actually, I'm managing this artist here, Elton John. And that was so cool. So we'd had this wonderful conversation about anything from fishing to, just everything. And it was marvelous. And he said, my name's Gordon Lightfoot. I said, brilliant.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite Canadian artists. I just love Gordon Lightfoot.
When we moved to Chapel Hill and Raleigh, he did a show, and I really wanted to try and go along there, get to see it, but I had to go to England, so that moment was gone.
As mentioned earlier, lots more from Ray Williams coming up, and Caleb Quay, Elton John's original guitarist, who left the fold for a while, was doing things with his band Hookfoot, which also featured another Elton John alumni, Roger Pope, on drums. We lost Roger a few years ago. Then Caleb came back for Rock of the Westies and Blue Moves, two of my favorite Elton John albums. We're going to talk about all that and a lot more. Caleb has his own documentary coming out. It's just been released, called Louder Than Rock. I'm very excited with all these interviews. And we're finally catching up to the backlog of interviews we've done in the last 3-4 months. It's been insane. We've been offered a lot of interviews. You don't say no. Remember, if you want to support this channel, we are hiring young editors fresh out of school to edit these interviews so we can get them out to you. Simply just buy a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. You'll get a good quality product and you'll help support us. That's all we ask. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel. We need you as a subscriber, and share our videos. If you're part of Facebook groups and we release a video that should be on that group you're a member of, please share it. We'd appreciate it. I'm John Beaudin from Rocky Street Music.